At Thanksgiving, my sister discovered I had $50 million now. My family wants all of it. I used to think my childhood was happy. And in many ways, it was. At least at the start. I was the firstborn, the little miracle, the pride of the house. My mom would braid my hair and call me her sunshine. My dad would carry me on his shoulders like I was the center of his world, and for a while, I believed I was. Everything changed when Sophia was born. The day she came home, my mom placed her in my lap and whispered, "She's your baby sister. Be gentle." I remember smiling, curious, protective. I didn't know she'd become the sun, and I the shadow. Sophia was loud, needy, delicate. She cried and everyone rushed. I cried and they told me to be quiet. As months turned to years, the house began to orbit around her. Her music lessons, her dance recitals, her scraped knees and school projects. My straight A's got a nod. Her average grades earned applause and an ice cream run. One night, I overheard my mom tell my dad, "Sophia needs more from us. She's sensitive, she's special." I remember sitting in my room staring at a math trophy I'd just won, realizing no one had asked how the competition went. They forgot my birthday when I turned 13. They said it was because of Sophia's dance finals. By high school, I'd stopped trying. I studied hard, worked part-time, stayed invisible. My only escape came from my Aunt Mira, my mom's older sister who never had kids of her own. She'd take me to bookstores, art galleries, and hole-in-the-wall cafes. She noticed everything. When I came second in the science fair, Mira was the one who threw me a small celebration. She printed the certificate and framed it. "If they can't see you," she said, "make yourself a lighthouse." Then there was Ethan. He sat behind me in sophomore English, always doodling code in the margins of his notebook. We became fast friends. He saw something in me. Potential, ambition, maybe pain. Whatever it was, he respected it. He never pitied me, and that mattered. By senior year, Ethan and I were inseparable. We shared dreams of building something big, not just a job, a future. But college? That was another story. I got accepted into my dream university. When I told my parents, they barely looked up from their phones. "There's no money for that," my dad said. "Maybe a community college?" But Sophia got a partial scholarship, my mom cut in. "It's different." Different, always different. So I worked. Nights, weekends, holidays, I saved every dollar. Ethan helped where he could, tutoring gigs, small freelance design jobs. Mira pitched in too, quietly slipping me cash and leftover groceries. "Just promise me you won't give up," she said once, pressing a 20 into my hand at a gas station. I didn't. College was brutal. Balancing 3 jobs, full course loads, and exhaustion. There were nights I'd fall asleep on library desks, my stomach growling, my mind fried. But I made it through. Ethan did too. And after graduation, we decided to stop waiting for someone to offer us a future. We'd make our own. We started a digital branding company out of a shoebox apartment, working off hand-me-down laptops and borrowed Wi-Fi. Clients were scarce at first. We took every job we could. Logo designs for hair salons, social media plans for dog groomers. But we got better. We learned. We built. In 3 years, we were profitable. In 5, we were being courted by venture capitalists. I moved into a small but cozy apartment with Juliet, an architect with a laugh like wind chimes and a brain that could outdesign most men in her firm. She loved me without needing me to prove anything. It was weird at first. To be loved. Without conditions. Juliet never asked about my family in the early days. When she finally did, I just said, "They're busy." That was my lie for everything. But the truth? They didn't even know I had a company. They didn't know I had a life. They never asked. They thought I was broke. They thought I was just figuring things out, waiting for life to happen. I didn't correct them. Why should I? The last time I texted my mom about something exciting, a regional award we'd won, she left me on read. My dad still thought I worked in freelance art. Sophia? She never reached out. Not for my birthday. Not when Mira got sick. Not even when she needed help moving and I offered a truck. She said Mitchell, her fiancé, had it covered. I wasn't invited to her engagement party. Or the bridal shower. They said it was too far to expect me to come. It was 40 minutes away. So I let go. Quietly. Until Thanksgiving. I wasn't planning to go to Thanksgiving that year. But Mira asked me to. Softly, the way only she could. She'd had a rough year with her health, and despite everything, she still wanted us to try to be a family. So I said yes. Juliet offered to come with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. I didn't realize then how much I would regret it. The moment I walked through the door, it was like I was 17 again. Unseen, unheard, tolerated. Sophia was the star of the day, glowing and loud, holding court in the living room like it was her wedding day. Mitchell, her fiancé, shook my hand and asked, "So, still doing that artsy freelance stuff?" I just smiled. Yeah, something like that. My parents said hi, then immediately started grilling me about my clothes, my hair, whether I'd gained weight. The food was cold, the conversation colder. Then it happened. Sophia had her phone out, showing everyone the venue for her honeymoon. "It's in the Maldives," she said proudly. "Like $8,000 a night, but Mitchell says I deserve it." Mira looked over at me and half joked. "If only someone else in this room had that kind of money, right?" Sophia smirked. "What, Krupa? Please, she's broke. Isn't that why you always help her?" Mira frowned. "You think she's broke?" Sophia laughed. "Come on, you guys act like she's running Google. She probably still rents." It was meant to be a dig. But Mira turned to me with that sharp look she had. "She doesn't rent," everyone quieted. "She owns that place in downtown, with Juliet. And the business she built with Ethan is now valued at over $50 million. The room froze. My father dropped his fork. Sophia blinked. "Wait. What?" Mira didn't flinch. "Oh, she didn't tell you?" I stood there, heart pounding, wishing I could vanish. My mom spoke slowly. "You have money?" I nodded once. "Yes." Sophia laughed like it was a joke. "Okay, but how much money?" I said nothing. Mira did. "She's worth more than all of you combined, because she did the work while you were busy ignoring her." They didn't take it well. At first it was disbelief. Then it turned to entitlement. "But we're family," my dad said. "That means something." "You wouldn't have made it without us," my mom snapped. "You owe us," Sophia added. "You owe me." I stared at her. "For what?" "For everything," she said, voice rising. "You think you just get to hoard success while we scrape by?" I laughed. I actually laughed. "You live in a luxury condo, Sophia. Your wedding costs more than some people's homes. What exactly are you scraping by with?" She turned red. "That's not the point. You're selfish." "No," I said calmly. "I just stopped giving to people who only show up when they want something." Then I left. The messages started that night. Guilt. Anger. Manipulation. "Your mother is sick over this. You embarrassed us. We raised you. We deserve our share." At first I ignored them. Then the threats came. "If you don't help your sister with her wedding, we'll go public. You'll regret this." They showed up at my apartment once, screaming in the lobby, demanding money, demanding answers. Juliet was there. She called security. I filed for a restraining order the next morning. And that was the day I realized they never loved me. They loved what I could give them. After I filed the restraining order, everything went quiet. Not peaceful, not resolved. Just quiet, a kind of silence that doesn't soothe but suffocates. Like the calm after an explosion when the dust hasn't settled and you can still smell fire in the air. I waited for the next wave of rage. A message, a knock, anything. But nothing came. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just cold, calculated silence from my family, the same people who once said, "We're all we've got." Turns out I was never part of that we. Mira was the only one who reached out. She visited often, bringing baked goods and soft reminders that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't cruel, that boundaries aren't betrayal. Juliet was my rock. She didn't try to fix it. She just held me. Sometimes in silence, sometimes while I cried, and sometimes while I raged into my pillow like a wounded animal. She let me feel it all. The betrayal. The grief, the stupid hope that still lingered in me like a bruise I couldn't press without flinching. I took a break from work. Ethan understood. He picked up the slack and told me to go rediscover who you are when no one's dragging you down. So I did. I walked. I cooked. I painted again, for the first time in years. And slowly I realized I hadn't felt joy in a long time. I'd felt victory. I'd felt vengeance. I'd felt justice. But joy? That soft, glowing, unearned feeling? That was new. One weekend, I volunteered at a local mentorship program for girls in tech. A shy, brilliant 17-year-old named Lila stayed after the session. "I've never seen someone like me do what you do," she said. And I cried in the car afterward. Because that was the legacy I wanted. Not proving my worth to people who would never see me, but being the proof for girls who needed someone to believe it could be done. That's how She Built was born. An idea scribbled on a napkin during brunch, now fully real. A foundation for girls like me. Girls who were ignored, underestimated, told to shrink. We launched our first 10-person cohort 6 months later. They were young, raw, bold, terrified, brilliant. We worked in a sunny co-working space I leased downtown. No dress code, no hierarchy, just work, hope, and hustle. Watching them was like watching younger versions of myself, learning, trying, breaking, rebuilding. Each girl carried a different story, but the same core truth. They were never the problem. The world just wasn't built for them to thrive, so we started building our own world. Juliet said, "You should tell your story." I shrugged. "I have." "No," she said. "Not for them. For the girls." So we hosted the first She Built Summit. Just 300 attendees, some folding chairs, and an open mic. I gave a speech. No script, no polish. Just truth. I used to think success would fix the hurt. That if I built enough, earned enough, became enough, they'd finally love me. But the truth is, healing didn't come from being seen by them. It came from seeing myself. They stood before I even finished. And in that moment, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I was the lighthouse. Then came the email. Subject: interview request, family perspective. It was from a journalist. Sophia had reached out, they said. Shared her side of the story. Painted herself as the hurt sister who had lost me to greed. They offered me a chance to comment. I almost deleted it. But then I realized I wasn't scared of their voices anymore. So I responded, "I'll speak, but I won't tear anyone down. I'll just tell the truth." And I did. A quiet, makeup-free, no-glam interview video. Just me. Just facts. I talked about college. About Mira. About building a business from scratch while my family cheered for Sophia. I ended with this. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up for you when you have nothing to offer but yourself. The video went viral. And for once, I wasn't alone in the pain. 2 months after the interview aired, a letter arrived. Real paper, handwritten, no return address. But I recognized the handwriting instantly. My mother's. I held it for hours before opening it, not out of fear, just a strange, sharp ache I couldn't quite name. Juliet sat beside me in silence. She knew better than to fill space that was meant to be felt. Finally, I unfolded the envelope. Dear, my name. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, and I don't blame you. I've seen what you've built, and I realize now I didn't raise you. Not really. I watched your interview. I thought I'd feel angry. Instead, I cried. Not because you were wrong, but because you were right. I'm sorry for everything. I don't expect forgiveness or a reply. But I wanted you to know you deserved more than I gave you. Love, Mom. I didn't cry right away. I stared at the words for a long time, tracing the places where the ink trembled, like she wrote it with shaking hands. I folded it back up and placed it in a drawer. And I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, but because I no longer needed anything from her. The apology was too late to repair the past, but it was enough to set me free. A few weeks later, Mira called. She sounded cautious. I heard something, she said, from an old neighbor, about your dad. What about him? He passed, quietly. Heart attack. I went silent. He didn't tell anyone, not even Sophia. I think maybe he was ashamed. I swallowed hard. Not sadness, not relief, just finality. Then Mira added, "There's something else." What? I think he left you something. 3 days later, a manila envelope showed up at my office. Inside was a cashier's check. $1 million, no note, just a legal signature. It matched my father's. It didn't feel like closure. Not exactly. It felt like an admission. Like he couldn't say the words, so he wrote them in zeros. I didn't keep the money for myself. I used it to launch a scholarship fund under She Built, for daughters from emotionally abusive homes who want to escape and rebuild. We called it the Unspoken Apology Grant, because sometimes the words never come. But we build anyway. I didn't hear from Sophia again, not even after our parents were both gone. A mutual friend told me she started a podcast about healing and boundaries. She sells crystals now. Sometimes people send me her clips. She talks about growing from pain. And maybe she has. But I no longer watch with anger. Just distance. Because here's the truth. Not everyone who hurt you was trying to destroy you. Some of them were just too broken to do anything else. And your job is not to bleed yourself dry trying to fix them. One day I returned home to find Juliet in the kitchen, music playing, candles lit, her hair up, her laugh loud. She looked at me like I was her whole world. And for the first time in my life, I realized I no longer missed being loved by the people who never really knew me, because now I was seen. And it changed everything. At She Built's 5-year gala, I was asked to close the night with a personal story. I didn't prepare a speech. I just spoke from the ashes and the rebuilding. I spent years trying to prove I was worth loving. I thought if I became successful enough, they'd come back, apologize, love me like I needed. But they didn't. And it turns out, I didn't need them to, because the love I built from scratch, it's stronger than the silence they left me in. The room stood before I even finished. Juliet squeezed my hand, and I knew this was my family now, the one I chose. Healing isn't one grand moment of triumph. It's not the courtroom win, not the viral post, not even the apology letter you waited a lifetime to receive. Healing is quieter. It's saying no without guilt. It's resting without feeling lazy. It's realizing you can smile on your own birthday, even if the people who once forgot it still never call. It's opening the curtains in the morning and thinking, I like my life, and meaning it. I wake up most days to sunlight filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows in the condo Juliet and I designed together. She always gets up first, makes coffee just how I like it, and kisses my forehead before heading out to work. She never says, you should smile more. She just gives me a reason to. My calendar used to be packed with things I hated, meetings with people I didn't respect, events that demanded I pretend. Now, it's filled with mentorship calls, investor panels where I bring up mental health, and creative strategy meetings where I remind my team that revenue is important, but impact is everything. Ethan and I still work together. We don't always agree, but we always align. He recently bought a house and named the Wi-Fi. Started from dorm, now we hear. We laughed for a whole hour when he told me, Mira's doing better. Her health is stable. She gardens now. Last week she sent me a photo of her tomatoes with the caption, who's the real CEO now? We see each other every Sunday. No forced smiles. Just warm food, shared silence, and memories that don't hurt anymore. Sophia hasn't reached out. And I haven't tried either. It's not coldness. It's clarity. I don't wish her harm. I just finally stopped confusing familiarity with family. She Built has scaled. We now run programs across 5 countries. One of our earliest mentees, Daniela, just sold her second company. She wrote me a letter. I never knew women like us were allowed to win. That sentence alone was worth every sleepless night, every penny I once scraped, every tear I cried in my dorm room while my family partied without me. We hosted our first international summit this year. 1,000 attendees, girls from different backgrounds, different stories, but the same fire in their eyes. One girl stood up during a quanda and asked me, what do you tell the version of yourself that used to cry at night and wonder if she mattered? I smiled. I'd tell her, one day people will fly across oceans just to hear your story. And I meant it. My life isn't perfect. Juliet and I fight sometimes. Running a company is exhausting. I still get anxious when my phone rings from an unknown number, but I don't live in fear anymore. I don't live on borrowed worth. I don't shrink in rooms that want me small. I don't beg. I don't explain. I just exist. And that's more than enough. Every so often I sit alone at my dining table. A beautiful oak slab Juliet and I found at an estate sale and refinished ourselves. We keep an extra chair. Not for someone else to join, but to remind ourselves we no longer wait for people who never showed up. The empty chair doesn't ache anymore. It just reminds me how full my life is now. If you ask me now, what does healing look like? I'd say this. It looks like laughing freely, sleeping soundly, loving deeply, and knowing that the absence of pain isn't emptiness. It's peace. 2 years had passed since the last time I'd walked into my parents' home. 2 years since Mira dropped the bomb that shattered every lie my family clung to. 2 years since my life went from quietly successful to painfully public. Thanksgiving came again. I wasn't planning to go, but Mira asked. again. And something in me, curiosity maybe, said yes. Not to rekindle anything. Not to test old wounds. Just to stand in the same room and realize I no longer needed anything from it. I didn't tell Juliet I was going until the night before. She offered to come. I told her no, not because I didn't want her there, but because I needed to prove something. Not to them, but to myself. That I could walk into the house where I was forgotten, unseen, dismissed, and leave untouched. The house looked the same. Same ugly rug. Same family photo with me awkwardly cropped on the edge like an afterthought. Sophia was there. Of course, her hair had changed. Shorter, blonder, styled like she was trying to be softer. She barely glanced at me. Mitchell gave a half wave. My mom opened the door like we were old friends who hadn't spoken in weeks, not years. Come in, she said, smiling like nothing had happened. I walked in without hugging her. I wasn't angry. Just detached. Detached is power sometimes. The table was set. Sophia sat at the head now. My father's chair was empty. No one mentioned it. No one mentioned anything, really. They acted like the last 2 years hadn't happened. Like the lawsuit, the restraining order, the interviews. None of it. It was bizarre. Like being in a play where everyone forgot their lines but kept moving through the scenes anyway. Halfway through dinner, Sophia finally looked at me. Her voice was calm but tight. So, I saw your summit video. I waited. She continued. You're doing well. I am. Good, she said, eyes narrowing just slightly. Some of us had to take different paths. Some of us didn't have a choice, I replied. Her lip twitched. It wasn't that we didn't care. No, I said. You just didn't notice. My mom cleared her throat. Can we not? I'm not starting anything, I said calmly. I'm just speaking plainly. Sophia put down her fork. I was the one who had to hold things together while you disappeared. I tilted my head. You mean when I was working 2 jobs to survive while you were planning a honeymoon to the Maldives? She flushed, then whispered, You don't know what pressure I had. Being the favorite isn't as easy as you think. There it was. The confession. The slip. The subtle admittance that she knew. All along. I took a deep breath. Looked around the table. The same table I used to sit at in silence, wondering what I did wrong. Now I saw everything clearly. This wasn't about me. It never was. It was about them. Their blind spots. Their choices. Their guilt. And I no longer carried it. I forgive you, I said. Sophia looked confused. What? I forgive you, I repeated. All of you. My mom blinked. So you're okay now? I smiled. I've been okay for a while. The room didn't know how to respond. Because forgiveness wasn't the performance they expected. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't a speech. It was just me, standing tall in the place that used to bury me, and saying, I'm free. I stood, grabbed my coat. Mira walked me to the door. She smiled, proud. They don't get it, she said. They don't need to, I replied. Then I left. And I never went back. Time moved differently after that last Thanksgiving. Not slower, not faster. Just lighter. The kind of light you feel after setting down a suitcase you didn't realize you were carrying for 20 years. I didn't think much about them anymore. Not in rage. Not in grief. Just occasionally in passing, like an old scar you catch in the mirror and nod at before moving on with your day. She Built continued to grow. We expanded to new cities, started a podcast, and published our first book. Juliet and I finally got engaged. We didn't do a big announcement. Just rings, matching tattoos, and a small dinner with friends who had become family. At the toast, Ethan said something I'll never forget. You didn't just break the cycle. You designed a whole new one. One afternoon, I was sorting through old files when I found something at the bottom of a drawer. A letter, not my mom's. This one had been buried for years. Yellowed envelope, barely legible handwriting. It was from my dad. Written, I assume, shortly before he died. I didn't know how to be a father to you. You were so independent I assumed you didn't need me. But I see now, you did. And I wasn't there. You didn't fail me. I failed you. If this reaches you, I hope you found your own way. I hope you're not angry forever. I hope you know. I was proud. I just never said it. Dad. I sat there for a long time. Not crying, Not shaking. Just still. And then I whispered out loud. I knew, because I did. Somewhere deep down, I always did. The next day, I added a new plaque to the she-built office wall. Legacy doesn't start with being understood. It starts with building anyway. Underneath, I had 2 words engraved. The last word. Because I didn't need another apology. Another explanation. Another scream across a dinner table. I had written the final word myself. In code. In company stock. In keynote speeches. In young girls finding their voices 5 years before I ever found mine. There was one final thing I wanted to do. I went back to the house. Not for them. For me. It was empty. Listed for sale. A for sale sign wilting in the yard. I stood at the edge of the driveway. It looked smaller. Everything does, once you grow. I didn't go inside, just stood there and whispered a goodbye to the version of me who once waited by that front door with a report card no one asked to see. She deserved more, and she got it from herself. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. A photo from Juliet. Our wedding invitations had arrived. And I smiled. Not because I was getting married. Not because of love or success or legacy. But because, for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't waiting for anyone to clap. I was clapping for myself. 3 months before our wedding, I got a call from our foundation's finance director. Hey, she said, her voice uncertain. Something weird just happened. Weird how? We just received a $500,000 donation to the Unspoken Apology Grant. Anonymous, no note. Wired from an offshore account routed through New York. I blinked. That's unexpected. That's not all, she said. The wire memo just says, for what was never said, for what was always felt. I didn't say anything. Because my heart already knew. I called Mira. She paused when I told her. Then said gently, it wasn't your mom. I'd bet my life. Then who? She hesitated. You're not gonna like it. Sophia? Mitchell's company recently went public, Mira said. He's made a fortune. Quietly. I wouldn't be surprised if they made the donation. I sat down, stunned. I haven't heard from her in years, I said. She doesn't need to speak to be heard, Mira replied. For the first time since Thanksgiving 2 years ago, I looked up Sophia's name. Her podcast was still running. Modestly successful. A recent episode was titled, When the Villain Wasn't Evil, Just Hurt. I listened. She never mentioned me by name. But I could hear it. Sometimes we confuse the strong ones with the lucky ones. We think they didn't suffer because they didn't scream. We think they were cold because they didn't beg. But maybe we just weren't listening. She ended with, if you've wronged someone and you can't go back, do something good. In their name. Even if they never find out. I closed the app and I cried, not because I forgave her. Not because I wanted her back, but because she finally understood. And that was enough. Juliet and I dedicated a new wing of our foundation that summer. A tech accelerator for underprivileged girls with trauma backgrounds. We named it The Light After. No plaque. No donors listed. Just a quiet garden out front with a stone bench that read, not every apology is spoken. Some are planted. So something better can grow. That fall, I was invited to speak at a women's tech summit in San Francisco. After my keynote, a young woman waited until everyone had left before approaching. She was maybe 21, nervous, shaking. She pulled a folded-up letter from her purse. My sister made me promise to give you this, if I ever met you. I blinked. Your sister? She nodded. Then whispered, Sophia. She handed me the letter and left without waiting for a response. The letter wasn't long. I don't know if I'll ever have the courage to see you again. I don't expect a reply. But I want you to know. I see it now. You never needed me to love you. You just needed me to stop getting in the way of you loving yourself. You did it. And I'm proud of you. I didn't cry this time. I just smiled. Because the apology wasn't for her anymore. It was for the girl I used to be. The one who thought her worth was measured by someone else's silence. Now? That girl was free. The morning of the wedding was calm. The sun spilled gold through the windows, warming the room where Juliet and I prepared. There was no rush, no chaos. Just quiet smiles and gentle touches. I looked at myself in the mirror. No makeup to hide the scars, no filters to soften the edges, just me. Whole. Juliet's voice was soft when she said, ready? I nodded. Let's do this. We stepped outside, hand in hand, into the garden where friends and chosen family gathered. I saw faces from every chapter of my life, The mentors, the mentees, Ethan, Mira, and Juliet's closest friends. Not a single person from my old family, and that was okay, because today wasn't about them. It was about us. The ceremony was simple but full of meaning. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath. I stand here today not because of where I come from, I said, voice steady, but because of where I'm going. Not because of the family I was born into, but because of the family I've chosen. I am not defined by silence, absence, or neglect. I am defined by resilience, love, and hope. I vow to love not only Juliet but also myself, with kindness, patience, and grace. I vow to build a life where no one is invisible, and to always remember the love I seek was always inside me. Today, I choose freedom. Today, I choose joy. Juliet squeezed my hand. Her eyes shimmered. Today I choose you, she whispered. We exchanged rings, and as we kissed, I felt a weight lift. A chapter close. A new story begin. Later, as we danced under twinkling lights, I thought about the journey. The years of pain. The nights of loneliness. The battles fought quietly in the dark. They didn't disappear, but they transformed. Into strength. Into peace. Into a life fiercely and beautifully lived. That night, as I lay beside Juliet, I whispered a thank you. Not to the family who turned their backs, not to the sister who demanded, but to myself, for never giving up, for choosing love, for finally being free. The end.